Just because a person doesn't go to college or receive a good quality education doesn't mean that they aren't entitled to vote. But all too often, the political process overlooks this segment of the population, which is what my next guest is working to change. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers on the Vote. I'm Robert Tranum, and I'm joined by Carey Jenkins, Deputy Director of the League of Young Voters, also known as CJ. CJ, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All too often, there's a stigma in this country that if, in fact, you go to an elite school, an Ivy League school, or just have a really good quality education, you are the only type of individual that's allowed in the political process. But as we know, nothing could be further from the truth. Everyone is entitled to vote. Everyone in this country, everyone is entitled to be a part of the political process. And you're working to educate all of us that this is the case, correct?
Most definitely. The League of Young Voters empowers young people to participate in the democratic process, to create progressive political change. We focus on non-college youth, low-income communities of color, to be the change that they want to see in the world. We don't just do voter registration. We also empower them and engage them, those who've been shut out of the political process. We train them to be sophisticated organizers in the community. We multi-alliance, multi-issue campaigns. And we also organize voters to hold elected officials accountable. So the communities that we work in, you have some of the most intelligent, beautiful young individuals who just aren't educated on issues. And if you educate them on the issues, they're more than willing to let their voice be heard.
All right, TJ, let me break it down for you, because I think what the issue really is that a lot of elected officials that are in power, quite frankly, do not pay attention to people that look like you and I. Right. They simply do not believe, maybe they do not understand that the power of people that live in the inner city, the power of people that live in rural communities is just as powerful as the individuals that go to Ivy League schools and so forth. You're working to change that, correct?
Yes, but I'm going to have to disagree. I think that elected officials do understand the power of young adults and low-income communities of color. 2011 and 2012, they've been passing voter ID laws that's going to disenfranchise millions and millions of young people of color.
Why?
To suppress their vote, because since 2004, low-income communities of color, African Americans, Latinos, between the ages of 18 and 30, the voting block has been going up for that bracket.
Now, CJ, let me take another point of view, because I think a lot of folks here in Washington, D.C. would say, well, wait a minute. First and foremost, we need to make sure that everyone that is eligible to vote is able to vote. And what's wrong with asking for a driver's license or a state-issued ID to make sure that you are the person that you say you are? Because we have 1.8 million dead people on the rolls. We have, and I'm making these numbers up to a certain degree, we have a lot of people that are voting that should not be voting. So you have to have some type of ID to buy alcohol. You have to have some type of ID to go through an airport screener. You have to have some type of an ID, quite frankly, when you pay for something on a credit card. So what's wrong with asking for an ID to vote?
Now, if you want to use those talking points, that's fine, but what politicians have been using is voter impersonation fraud, which is totally bogus, okay? If you look at 21 million people between the ages of 18 to 29 that's voter eligible, don't have the proper identification to vote. You have 76% of African Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 who don't have a driver's license. 4.5 million between the ages of 18 and 29 don't have a valid driver's license. You have 15% who make $35,000 or less don't have a valid photo ID. So we're talking about millions and millions of young adults, elderly, college students who are going to be affected, and you're not giving them the proper education to obtain a driver's license or to obtain a valid ID to vote. So you take Wisconsin, where I'm from. They have free application fees where you can get an ID.
A state-issued ID.
Correct. But we have to now manage the mismanagement, because people, if you're not going to the booth and saying, I need this to vote, they're telling you that you can't obtain an ID. So there's all type of loopholes to discourage young people from obtaining IDs to vote. So there's nothing wrong with that process, the talking points that you gave, but when you talk about the millions of people that will be disenfranchised and the loopholes just to obtain it, it's going to make it very difficult, and it's going to discourage so many from getting their IDs.
You know, CJ, I'm very curious to know how you and your organization reach out to young people, because all the statistics that I read is that young people, frankly, do not have a traditional landline. Young people, quite frankly, are at one place in their life, maybe for 3 or 6 months in an apartment or so forth, and they move on.
Correct.
More and more people are getting, obviously, their information, young people, from an iPad. This is obviously something that I have, and I'm sure you have one. And it's funny, I read a statistic the other day day that young people under the age of 25, their computer, it's not a traditional computer that perhaps maybe you and I would think of. Their computer is their cell phone. So how do you reach out to these individuals? And just as importantly, how do you empower them?
Art and technology. You have to go where they are. In Barack, January 24, 2012, and last year, 2011, we created Barack Talk, a live stream which allows the young adults in the communities to text, tweet issues before the State of the Union address. We had the blogosphere world attend. We had activists and organizers talking about the environment, talking about high tuition, talking about violence in the inner city. 2011, we had 8,000 to 10,000 viewers. This past January 24th, we had 33,000 young people tune in, live stream, partner with Ustream and Rock the Vote. So they are paying attention to, they do have a voice, so they're engaged. So you use art, you use technologies to engage them. In Wisconsin, we have a campaign called Got ID. So it's using Twitter, it's using all the viral videos and social media to really educate our constituency on how to obtain an ID, taking you through the proper steps, identifying who is disenfranchised. So Got ID is one of the ways that we are engaging and educating as well.
CJ, one could make the argument that a lot of young people out there are inspired throughout this process because of Barack Obama. Okay. He looks like them, he acts like them, just in terms of being more of a youthful role model in their lives. Assuming that, can you make the argument that the Republican Party needs to do a better job of reaching out to young people? Because you are nonpartisan.
Okay. Well, I think both parties need to do a better job of reaching out and educating.
Who does a better job?
Who does a better job? I think that we do the best job.
Okay.
I think that the League of Young Voters does the best job with limited resources of using art and using the tools that we have to engage and inspire our constituency.
CJ, we have about 30 seconds left. For the viewer at home that is watching this at home, or perhaps on their iPad or on the web and so forth, how can the folks at home get a hold of you and or your organization?
Visit 99problems.org or youngvoter.org. Donate, let your voices be heard. Hit us up on Twitter. And just remember that we are the ones that we've always been waiting for.
All right, CJ, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you for having me.
Keep up the good work. And of course, thank you for joining us for this edition of Comcast Newsmakers On the Vote. I'm Robert Traynham. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.